I'm PJ O'Neill, serving as Branch Chief for STEM Training. Welcome to this month's Tech Talk, Technical Leadership with Commodore Susan Davies. Tech Talks are sponsored by the U.S. Coast Guard, Coast Guard Auxiliary, and the Boy Scouts of America Sea Scout program. Tech Talks are held typically on the fourth Tuesday of the month at 2100 Eastern Time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern. But next month's Tech Talk, due to the Thanksgiving holiday, will be held on November 28th. And the topic will be paddlecraft safety. Just a reminder, this Tech Talk is being recorded and will be posted on both the Sea Scout and AuxScout YouTube channels. Please subscribe to the YouTube channels and share with your shipmates that could not join in tonight live. The recorded Tech Talks make for excellent training in your Sea Scout ship or in your auxiliary flotilla. I would like to introduce our subject matter expert, Commodore Susan Davies, who currently serves as Assistant National Commodore, Information Technology on the Auxiliary National Staff. She's a past flotilla commander for Flotilla 2512, Arlington-Northern, Virginia, as qualified vessel examiner and life jacket wear observer. She's a retired U.S. Navy captain with 25 years of commissioned service. She was a Naval Flight Officer in the U.S. Navy from 1981 to 2005 and Commanding Officer of Fleet Air Reconnaissance Squadron 3 from 1998 to 99. She has over 3,800 hours in the E-6A, the EC-1300 aircraft, and Training Command aircraft. During her career, she has served on several joint and major headquarters staffs at every echelon within the Department of Defense. Following retirement, she was a management consultant, program manager, and subject matter expert for the E-6B Tacoma program at Whitney, Bradley, and Brown. Consulting for 5 years with WBB, she consulted on a wide variety of projects across the federal sector with a focus on defense and homeland security. She was a frequent writer and editor of reports, studies, and documents produced by Whitney, Bradley, and Brown. She was also an instructor for the Department of Defense planning, programming, budgeting, and execution process, as well as the congressional process. For tonight's leadership talk, I would like to turn it over to Commodore Sue Davies.
Thank you very much, PJ, and I'm so pleased to be here tonight. This is such a great opportunity for me to reach out to the Sea Scout audience and the supporting Sea Scout auxiliaries out there. So what I'm going to do now is share my screen and start the program tonight. Just want to make sure you can see my screen.
Good to go, Commodore.
All right. So what we're going to do tonight is talk about technical leadership. And this will be a precursor to those of you who then go out into the field to a flotilla or Sea Scout ship activity and use these principles, apply them to your activities out there. So the Coast Guard has an instruction, and they call these commandant instructions, and they have one for leadership. And there is actually a Coast Guard definition for leadership out there, and it's really, you know, it's a mutual relationship with other people, your ability to influence others, get their obedience, which sounds a little bit, harsh, but it's just about respecting the regulations that are out there, as well as respecting each other. And as you go out there and you experience leadership opportunities, you're building confidence, you're building loyalty to the organization, and you're building loyalty to being cooperative with each other, right? And this is a continuum. Really good leadership develops over a period of time. I mean, I started in the Navy at age 23. And quite frankly, this is, more than 40 years later, I am still learning how to be a good leader, how to be an effective leader, because I'm experiencing different situations, different people, and so I'm always reflecting on how to be a good leader in a new experience. So we're just going to walk through what the Coast Guard Commandant's instruction talks about when it comes to their approach to leadership. So the Coast Guard has what they call a leadership development framework. And it's kind of like a triangle. You've got leadership competencies, you've got different responsibility levels, and you've got different ways of obtaining experience, obtaining training and education, and then demonstrating your ability to be a good leader at each of those responsibility levels and in each different competency. So we're going to walk through that development framework tonight. And as we go through this presentation tonight, I'll periodically stop and just ask if you have any questions, but don't be afraid to, put something in chat. And maybe PJ, I'd ask you if you could just monitor chat for me tonight. And if there's something that comes up, just interrupt and I'll stop the presentation. All right, this circle on the left looks a bit daunting, but really I'm going to break this down into somewhat more simple, easier to understand presentation as we go forward. But basically, there are 4 broad competency categories in here. We have leading yourself, leading others, leading performance and change, and leading the Coast Guard. And within those competencies, there are subsets of, other competencies that are part of those broad categories. Within those competencies, the Coast Guard has identified, what kind of expertise you need in those areas, depending on your level within your organization. So for us in the auxiliary, it would be the basic member or the auxiliarist, the flotilla, especially the flotilla commander, the flotilla staff officers, the division commander and their staff, then the district and national. So right now I hold a national staff position, as does Bruce. And so we have different leadership responsibilities at the national level that are somewhat broader than just the auxiliarist. And then putting the competencies and the levels of the organization together with the leadership training resources that we have, whether it's self-study, whether it's online courses, whether it's in class opportunities, or whether it's practical demonstration, which for me, I think is kind of the best way to learn leadership. All of these 3 components form the Coast Guard's leadership framework. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just break down the 4 broad leadership categories of leading self, leading others, leading performance and change, and leading the Coast Guard. First and foremost, it's leading yourself. You need to understand who you are. You need to know yourself, right? You have to know yourself before you can know others and then lead others. So these are what your personality type is, what you prefer to do and not do, what you like and don't like. And then you also are learning how you, as a leader, a future leader, can fit into the organization. it also involves a lot of reflection on yourself. How good you are or not are, and everybody's got different skills and abilities, and you need to learn, okay, what am I good at? What am I not good at? I've learned over the years what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And we'll get to it, but for example, it took me a very long time to be comfortable talking to a group like this. But through practice and feedback, I gained confidence. And that's what it's all about. So I see there's a chat, PJ, comment.
Yes, that's just Peter reminding people they can post their questions in chat.
Oh,
So I will keep
okay.
track of any questions that come in for you.
Gotcha. All right. All right. So leading self. So these are the sub competencies, if you will, under leading self. I'm not going to read the list, but I'm just going to talk through these. So accountability and responsibility are, that's kind of self-evident. I mean, you are accountable to yourself and the organization, right? You want to follow the rules and make sure you are setting the example for others to follow the rules and regulations. Followship. It's a little bit not clear, but followership is really about the fact that you, as a leader, future leader in turn, are following others above you and following the rules, following the regulations, and setting the example for others to also do the same. Self-awareness and learning. And I just made a good example of, hey, I was aware that, hey, I was not comfortable with communication in public. I just became aware of that, and I, sought opportunities to continue to practice that, and I became much more confident in doing that. Aligning values is really talking about when you come into an organization like the Sea Scouts, the auxiliary, the Coast Guard, there are certain core values that we all have to follow, honor, respect, devotion to duty. And you have to make sure that your values align with the values of the organization that you have joined. Health and well-being. It's just, that is really about taking care of yourself physically and mentally and emotionally. And then in turn, you're going to translate that into keeping an eye on the folks that work for you and make sure they are taking care of themselves, that their well-being is okay mentally and emotionally. Personal conduct that sort of overlaps with some of these areas above, but basically that you're conforming with the guidelines and principles of the organization. And then finally, technical proficiency, which is, you may not be good at everything. That's fine. That's understandable. But for those areas that you are inclined towards, that you become proficient. Not only that you get trained in them and you get qualified in them, but you remain proficient. A lot of times in the auxiliary, we have issues with members, who go back, that they may get qualified, but they just don't remain proficient. You need to always be conscious about remaining technically proficient and being the one that folks look up to and say, yeah, I want to be like him or her, and be as good as they are, be as sharp as they are on the boat or in the aircraft or what have you. Any questions about leading self? Okay, leading others. So this is now where you in turn look at the team around you and help them in turn become leaders themselves. You're helping influence them to achieve common goals. You're interacting with them in many ways. You could be part of the team. You could be leading the team. You can do both of those things. You're now taking the skills that you've learned and applying them using effective communications, whether it's in writing or speaking or what have you. Leading others, I moved this one up to the top. Respect for others and diversity management. I mean, that's a hugely important topic of discussion these days. Is we're focused on, we have a very diverse society, and you're probably experiencing a very diverse Sea Scout ship or a diverse flotilla. And it's about respecting others from where they come from, right? We all have different experiences, and you have to respect that. And it's learning about how to understand different backgrounds and understand how they can best fit into the organization and what they can contribute. Effective communications, it's not just about writing well and speaking well, but also conveying the right message to the group, to the team, right? Influencing others, it's about, I would say, you're not barking orders to people. You're saying, hey, this is what we need to do, and this is why. It's easy to give orders, but you're not necessarily getting them on board with what you're trying to accomplish. There are times when you might need to yell at somebody, but more often than not, there are times when you just need to say, hey, this is the goal. This is what we need to accomplish. This is why we're doing it. And then they're more likely to come on board with you. And that helps build a team. You're building a team of different people with different skills and different backgrounds. And your job as a leader sometimes is to say, you over here, you're really good at tying knots. I want you to be on this part of the crew. You over here are really good on the radio. We want you to manage the communications. You're looking at the team that you have, the people around you, and you're building the team to form the best crew, the best team that you can based on their abilities. At the same time, you're also looking out for them. Hey, does somebody need to be rotated off a particular watch station because they might be getting a little bit fatigued up there? Are they behaving a little bit differently today, and is something going on in their lives that maybe they're a little bit stressed out from? You start to pick up on things like that, the better you know your people. And then finally, mentoring, which is if it's not you, it's somebody else. You try to find a good pairing with those who have the experience and those who are looking for the experience, and try to pair them up. And that way you help build their confidence, the person being mentored, and they get more confidence and they just contribute more to the team. So leading performance and change. So this one is really about you're learning what works well and where you might suggest to your Sea Scout ship leader or your flotilla commander, perhaps different ways of approaching the same task or the same problem, possibly to make it more efficient, right? You can identify in certain situations where a certain team works, and then in a different situation where you might need to change that team composition for whatever the mission is that you're trying to accomplish. It really does depend on the situation. The leading performance and change, it starts with understanding who is your audience, who's your customer. So in certain situations, your focus might be your particular Sea Scout ship. Another customer focus might be, for this audience, particular instructors or teachers. I remember as a collegiate, I did private glider training, and I had two different instructors with completely different styles, and I learned to adjust how I perform certain things based on what I knew those instructors wanted. And it worked, but they were very night and day. So I understood who, in that case, to me, the customer was my instructor, right? So it was a very interesting experience. Management and process improvement. It sort of overlaps with the previous, but you always kind of look at, okay, how could we possibly go about this to make what we're doing a little bit more efficient or streamlined or conserve resources or bring more people on board or what have you. And decision making and problem solving. And I've got this photo from when I did cold water survival training up at Curtis Bay near Baltimore. Obviously, being in the water with the cold suit there is means that something has happened, that you're in the water like this, and so you have to work together quickly to resolve any conflicts, solve a problem, come together. I didn't put it in here, but there's a following photo where we're all huddled up trying to conserve heat. Creativity and innovation. Again, it's just thinking about, hey, are there better ways that I could probably approach a problem that would help the mission or help improve the situation that the team is in? And then vision development and implementation is really, it's like goal setting, if you will. Taking what you see and then being able to articulate to your leaders, your above you, hey, this is what I've experienced. This is how I think it could be improved. And you write that down, or you talk to them and you seek to implement that vision. And then leading the Coast Guard, when I first put this brief together, I said, this might be a little bit above where we are with this group. But then I said, no, I'm just going to put this slide in here. This is, the fourth major broad category for leadership. And I said, really, I could try to apply it to the Sea Scout ship and the auxiliary flotilla level. And we'll move on into, give it a little bit of time to just read this slide. And it looks very, very, very top level, and you can certainly easily apply it to the very strategic senior leadership of the Coast Guard. But where it applies is stewardship, and I'm going to lump a lot of these together. Stewardship is really about taking whatever limited resources you have and using them efficiently, whether it's dollars, whether it's your people, whether it's your time, whether it's your available technology. Stewardship is about using your available resources efficiently, using them wisely, not wasting them. Sometimes you may need to partner up with another team or somebody else to move the mission forward, if you will. A lot of these don't necessarily apply, but you understand as a leader what the economic and the social trends are, what new methods might be out there. You need to stay current on those things. Don't stay in a silo. Open up your aperture to look left and right and say, hey, what are some different approaches that I could take to this particular mission or this particular problem? In all of this, you need to be realistic about your resources, what they can do, realistic about your own availability. I've seen a lot of leaders where they just stress themselves so much that they're not taking care of themselves, right? And they need to take care of themselves. So with this basic understanding of leadership, this foundation of, where you are in the organization, what your skills are and that of your team, you can have opportunities, endless opportunities with the Sea Scout ship and the auxiliary flotilla for learning and applying the skills to lead groups, motivate others, problem solving, communicate effectively, which to me is extremely important. And then your experience in these activities helps build your confidence. Really, it really helps you learn about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, those of your teammates. And these are not just skills for your Sea Scout ship or the auxiliary. These are life skills. You're going to take these skills that you learn throughout your life, and you're going to find that you will adjust them as you get older, as you mature, as you come across different experiences, and you might adjust your approach, and that's okay. That's good. That's part of learning as a leader. So 2 words sum up what makes an effective leader. One is integrity. Integrity is simply, in my mind, integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody's looking, right? So you don't need somebody else looking at you to do the right thing, that you're doing the right thing regardless. The other is trust. And that's trust in your team, and in turn, it's your team's trust in you. Trust that you're doing the right thing by them. Trust that you've given them every opportunity to do the best that they can, and that you trust your team, and you're not trying to do everything yourself, that you've created a team where you trust, you've built the team right so that you can trust them to do the job. The worst thing you can do is, as a leader, is to try to do the job for them. You're trying to teach them to do the job, right? So integrity and trust. And I didn't put it in here, but I think I would throw in another word in here, which is resilience. You know, as a leader, you're going to run into issues where things don't go right or the way you thought they would go. The plan didn't work out, what have you. You might have a frustrating situation with a member. You need to be resilient. And what I like to do is, if I have a particularly difficult problem, I like to step away for about 24 hours, think through it, and then come back and try to tackle it, rather than trying to immediately solve the problem. Unless it's a mission critical situation, sometimes it's just best to step back, reflect on it, saying, hey, why is this person behaving this way, or what might be going on? Anyway, resilience is what I would add here. And that really concludes my presentation tonight. Any questions?
Okay, Commodore Davies. Let's start with a few questions here.
Sure.
So do you have to have an official title or an official position to be a leader?
No, you don't. And that is often how you identify future leaders, is that you've got somebody in the team who's not in an official position, but they're clearly showing the signs of somebody who could be promoted into a position. Absolutely.
Great. You mentioned one of the skills of a leader is certainly conflict management or conflict resolution. And as we all know, conflict is not comfortable. So if you are in a leadership position and there's conflict in your team, do you have any advice on handling the conflict so that the problem on the team doesn't get worse?
Yeah, that is that happens so much, where it just a conflict can just sort of like, expand. What I would do is, first you have to know that their conflict is going on, and you need to identify how to start it, and you need to be open, whether it's between two individuals or within the group. If it's between two individuals, I would say hear both sides. Don't assume one position or the other right off the bat. You need to hear both sides. The other is to be open with the group and say, hey, this is going on. Let's have a discussion. Let's have it out here. Just be open about it. Don't try to hide it, because it's just going to get worse if you don't tackle it.
Excellent advice, not just for official leadership, but as you had put in your presentation, these are life skills. That's a
Right,
good life advice as well.
right.
Do you think you mentioned, sometimes a leader may change their approach and things like that, and I'm sure we've heard phrases or even have explored leadership styles. Do you think that each person is kind of stuck into one leadership style, or does it take time to find your leadership style?
So when I was in the Navy, it was easy to rely on the rank structure, right? And so, as a commander or captain or what have you, a mission commander, I could tell a petty officer, do this, do that, and it was considered an order, and they did it. In the auxiliary, we're a bunch of volunteers. And although we wear different insignia, we're all volunteers, and we all have different time availability. And I'm retired. So my time availability is much better than a lot of my staff they work full time. And so I have had to learn to be patient right? I have had to learn to be patient, and I'll say, hey, please do this. And I'm thinking, okay, it'll be done this afternoon. And then it takes a couple of days for them to get to it. And I'm like, okay, this is a different situation. I can't just order them to do something. These are volunteers. I have to respect their time. So yeah, I have had to adjust my, I guess, my expectations. So yeah,
Great.
I'm still
Well,
learning that one.
as you said in the beginning, right?
Right,
Still a full process of development, lifelong process.
right, right. And it really does take a lot of reflection to say, okay, what are my expectations unrealistic? And yeah, they were. So I'm trying to adjust.
Here's a question that's come in. What function should the leader play in representing their team to their managers and back to the team?
Um, my rule is don't take every problem immediately to your superior, right? Don't take every problem to your Sea Scout ship leader or your whatever your next echelon is. Always try to resolve problems at your level and only take problems forward if you've given your best effort and you can't seem to resolve it, right? And you may learn something from taking it up to your next echelon leadership level and say, hey, this is the problem I'm having. You don't necessarily need to name names initially, but just say, hey, this is the problem I'm having. What advice do you have for me? And then take it back. A lot of times I see it's not necessarily a problem, but a lot of times I see in the auxiliary folks kind of go up like this, over here and down, rather than they could have just come across like this. Couldn't you have just come to me directly instead of just running this up the flagpole? Yeah. So that's what I would do, is just try to resolve it at your level. And then if not, seek advice without dumping the problem upstairs, if you will.
Great. I have a question about motivation. The foundations of leadership here. It's multifaceted and it's a lot of work, and you expend a lot of energy to become a good leader. So, for you or in general, what do you think motivates a leader? What's fulfilling about leadership?
I mean, to me, fulfilling leadership is fulfilling when you see a team come together to perform a mission successfully, and that you see new people come in and they immediately figure out, okay, I'm interested in doing this. This is how I can contribute to the team, and then you just start to see this kind of this like synergy of effort come together when you see a team perform a mission.
That's great.
That's really rewarding.
And so I hear that mission oriented. You use that word several times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Focus on mission.
Right.
Outstanding. I don't see any more questions. So if you have a burning question, you'll have to get it in here quickly. But thank you for taking the time to answer these questions, so thoroughly, and from your, years of experience in leadership and your journey in leadership, and giving some really practical advice to both auxiliaries and Sea Scouts, right? No matter
Sure.
what our level is in our organization.
Absolutely. Happy to
So
do it.
on behalf of the Sea Scouts and the AuxScout program, I'd like to thank you for your time, Commodore Davies, and sharing the fundamentals of technical leadership and answering our questions and leaving us with some good advice to reflect for ourselves on how we can be better leaders in the future. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, PJ.
And
Appreciate it.
for everyone else out there, we hope that you'll join us on November 28th with Dr. Robin Pope, who will be discussing paddlecraft safety. Have a good evening, everyone, and see you in November.